It's very nice to be here tonight. I am now the endorsed candidate coming out of the convention, so in a way, maybe it was better I waited, who knows. But it's great to be here. I've been a representative from the town of Storrs, not too far up the road, in a little institution up there some of you may know of, called Yukon. And I've been in the legislature for 17 years. And I spend a lot of time in Glastonbury, mostly shopping, I have to admit, but that's okay. And I have many friends that live here. And I'm going to mention one of them in a little while just to give you some notion of where I came from. And so since I haven't been here before, even though I do know a number of you, I will say something about who I am and then my hopes for the office of Secretary of State. And maybe then a little bit about the coming election, because I think it's important for Democrats to start thinking about this right now. And it is an August primary, which is always a challenge. We've only had a couple of them, so we really don't know what that looks like right now. But it will be incumbent on all of us to try to get people out to vote. And as someone who wants to be Secretary of the State, I think it's particularly important for me to be talking about that. So I came to politics 17 years ago because I was co-president of the Vinton PTA. Now that might sound funny, but it's the truth. I was one of those moms, and I had 3 kids who were at that time in elementary school, and I cared about what they were doing in education, and I got involved as a parent. We started a parent group, and then I got on the Board of Education. That's what tends to happen to you when you get in parent groups. And after that, pretty soon after that, ran for the legislature. But what I did before that was I ran something called the Consortium for Law and Citizenship Education. I worked at the Secretary of the State's office. And that really does explain why I want to be Secretary of the State. I think my real interest in life is what we're going to do to bring the next generation into our democracy. And I really fear for its loss. And I have for a long time. And it's, people talk about this all the time, the lack of involvement, the lack of voter turnout. I think it's a very deep problem, honestly, and it's one I want to work on again. And I did for a long time. I ran the consortium for about 10 years, put it together with the Department of Education and others. And that is a big priority for me as part of the job of being Secretary of the State. I think outreach to get new voters involved, more than just about voting. It really is about civic engagement, the way I got into it. We're losing that in our society. And I don't have to tell you, if any of you, and I'm sure some of you, sit on local boards of education or local planning and zoning or town councils, it's getting harder and harder to get people to participate at the very local level, where it's actually the least difficult to get involved. So when I was running the consortium so long ago, that's when I realized that those were the issues I wanted to work on. So the first thing I did when I came in the legislature, I was the vice chair of the elections committee, and Susan Bysowitz was the chair. And that was back in 1994, 95. And the first bill we worked on together was actually, ironically, a direct primary bill. It reduced we ended up reducing the number of votes you would need in a convention in order to qualify to be in a primary from 20% to 15%, which ironically is what enabled so many people to qualify. I really, really believe in open government. I really believe passionately that as many people that can get involved, that can run for office, should be running. And I am a diehard believer in the public financing system. I think the bill that we passed, and that was another bill I worked on back in 1995, I introduced one of the first public financing bills in the state. It didn't pass. Eventually we got one. And I think it is the signal accomplishment of the legislature in the last 10 years, at least. I'm the majority leader in the House, by the way. And over the time I have run the House Democrats organization, we have increased the numbers in the House. We are up to 114 Democrats in the House, and it's not an accident. And I've worked on people's campaigns all through the state, including Tom Kehoe's race, and we can talk about that. I've been out door knocking in his district, also Jason Rojas, who I think is coming later tonight. So I think being a majority leader, what you have to do is, I think to some degree, put aside your own personal agenda and try to help other people and bring people together to get votes for things that have been extremely difficult, to be honest. If you don't know how a majority leader operates or how you get elected by your peers. And I am extremely proud of the fact that I was elected by my peers as majority leader 2 years ago. Before that, I was chair of appropriations, another easy job. I was chair of appropriations for 4 years. So I think I'm mostly known recently for my work on the budgets. I was chair when there was still money, which was a little different than it is right now. It's a very, very difficult job. We're facing some huge decisions, and I don't have to tell you that, and I'm sure if you would really like to, we can talk about that later. But I'm also proud of the fact that I'm only the second woman in 350 years of Connecticut history to be elected to leadership in the House, which is kind of interesting. And I think it is because I am someone that does put my own personal agenda aside, and I try to help other people. And I have been a leader on many issues in the House. I, of course, care deeply about education, and that has been my primary interest all these years. But I really did start out with the first bill that I really felt that I helped pass was one that required teaching civics in the schools. And it's really interesting now because I remember the debate, and the debate was, you mean it's not required? And people didn't realize that it really had been squeezed out of the curriculum by things that are tested. So one of those things I'm just telling you right now, a priority for me will be to make sure that civic education remains not only in the curriculum, but is also tested as part of our testing system. Because what gets tested is what people teach now, unfortunately, I think. But you know, that's where we are, and I will make that a big priority. So people said to me, so you're the majority leader, you were elected by your peers, it's a very big deal, you have a lot of power in the House, why would you give that up to be Secretary of the State? And I have to tell you, this is the only job I have run for. And I'm one of the few, I think, that hasn't really been looking for other positions. This is the only position I want. I started right from the beginning. As soon as Susan decided that she was not going to run again, I immediately knew this is what I wanted to do because it's what I always wanted to do. And that's because I do think that elections and participation and civic engagement is the most important issue we all are dealing with. There is another aspect of the office that also interests me, and that's been more recent interest of mine, and that's jobs. Because I think the other big job, and they're both related, is that we need jobs in the state. We've lost 100,000 jobs. We can't do all the things we want to do unless we get them back, and they're not going to be the same jobs. But because of my involvement primarily at UConn, where I saw a lot of research going on that could be ramped up into offshoots, spin-off businesses, and that sort of thing, and I've been working on that for a number of years, I put together something this year called the Majority Leader Jobs Roundtable, which morphed into a bill that is the major jobs legislation that passed this year, and that will try to spur growth and development for economic development in the state in a way that I think will bring investment into the state. And we talked to a lot of experts. I just brought people together because frankly the governor wasn't doing anything. Neither was anyone else. It was sort of like, you know, majority leader isn't supposed to be doing that, but I thought, why not me? Nobody else is doing anything, so I just pulled it together. And it really did net, I think, a very creative plan. New governors are coming in, they're going to have their own plans, but it's something they can draw on. And that's where I got the idea that maybe the Secretary of State's office could be an office of business advocacy. Because I think what we need, again, it's just like civic engagement. You need outreach to young people, businesses, people who might think about starting businesses. And government isn't very good at this. And right now, people don't trust us very much because they feel it's bureaucratic, it's beyond their control. There's a drumbeat of criticism about government. And I will just tell you one